Methinee, a 15-year-old girl with a slender frame and a pale face, had eyes that held a sadness beyond her years. After the funeral of her mother, who had passed away suddenly, a permanent silence and loneliness enveloped the old wooden house by the Chao Phraya River. Every corner of the room seemed to be filled with shadows of memories that never faded, as if the walls still held her mother's laughter and smiles. This loss left a heavy pain in Methenee's heart, making it impossible for her to return to a normal, happy life. She wandered aimlessly through the house, gazing out the window at the slowly flowing Chao Phraya River. A large solitary tree on the bank stood like a silent witness to the farewell. Methenee's father, a tall, lean man in his 50s with graying hair, his face weary and filled with worry, tried his best to comfort and care for her. He watched his daughter with deep concern every time he saw the sadness so clear on her face. The prolonged silence within the house only intensified the suffocating atmosphere. Methenee's father could only hope that time would help heal the wounds in his daughter's heart. One afternoon, as the soft sunlight began to wane, casting rays into the dusty and musty living room, Methenee's father appeared with an old, weathered wooden box in his hands. The box looked heavy and was covered in the marks of time, having passed through decades. He placed it gently on an old teak table and turned to Methinee, speaking in a gentle voice tinged with sorrow. "This is the last inheritance your mother left for you. It's an important item that has been carefully preserved since the time of our ancestors." Methenee's father explained that her mother had a strong connection to the contents of this box, especially the Apsorn Doll inside. Hearing the doll's name, Methinee felt a strange sensation, as if a cold chill had just run down her back. She slowly approached the wooden box, her heart pounding with a mix of curiosity and a subtle sense of dread. Methinee reached out a trembling hand to carefully open the lid. Inside, it was filled with old silk wrapping something. The musty smell, accumulated over time, wafted through the area. Her eyes scanned around, trying to comprehend what was about to be revealed before her, not knowing what awaited her inside. Inside the box, Methinee found a wooden carved doll, as beautiful as an apsara from heaven. It was the Apsorn Doll her father had mentioned. The doll was wrapped in shimmering golden silk that, though old, still retained its beauty. Its eyes were emerald green gems that seemed to gaze at her with a mysterious life of their own. The doll's face was gentle, with a faint smile on its lips, which were painted a light vermilion red. It was about 1.5 feet tall, adorned with small, exquisite brass ornaments that looked ancient and like a piece of high art. Methinee gently lifted the doll, feeling a certain chill spread into her fingertips. She sensed a current of energy emanating from the doll. Not exactly a frightening energy, but a feeling that was hard to describe, as if a spirit resided within. The doll seemed to be silently watching and examining her amidst the deepening gloom of the room. This strange sensation gave Methinee goosebumps all over her body for no apparent reason. Methinee placed the Apsorn doll on the bedside table in her private room, which was filled with her personal belongings. She watched the doll for a long time, as if spellbound. Its beauty was captivating, yet a strange feeling lingered. Outside, the sky darkened, and the chirping of crickets echoed in the dead silence. The faint moonlight shining through the window cast strange shadows on the floor and walls. A gentle breeze rustled the curtains, carrying a faint fragrance, like ancient flowers that seemed to emanate from the doll, giving Methinee goosebumps. She tried to shake off these thoughts before forcing herself to sleep amidst the anxiety welling up in her heart. She had no idea that what she had encountered today was the beginning of a supernatural story about to storm into her life. She thought it was just a beautiful, ordinary doll, but the truth might be far from it. The feeling of being watched remained stuck in her mind. That very night, Methinee was startled awake in the dead of night by a faint whisper that echoed in the silence of her room. The voice was like a woman singing an ancient lullaby, but it sounded mournful and strangely terrifying. Her heart pounded with fear. She tried to open her eyes and look around the dark room, but saw nothing unusual, only looming shadows cast by the dim moonlight filtering through the window. She tried to tell herself it was just a dream or the wind, but the whisper grew steadily louder and clearer, as if someone were whispering right next to her ear. Methinee felt a cold breath brush past her face, sending shivers down her spine. She tried to force her eyes shut again, but couldn't. Fear began to gnaw at her mind, and she felt as if someone was standing at the foot of her bed, staring at her silently in the darkness that enveloped her bedroom. The next morning, Methinee woke up exhausted. She felt as if she hadn't slept soundly all night. She walked over to the Apsorn doll on the bedside table, and what she saw startled her. The doll was not in the same position she had placed it in last night. It had turned slightly to face her, as if it were staring. The doll's beautiful face seemed to come alive in the early morning light. Fear began to build in her heart again. She tried to console herself that perhaps she hadn't placed the doll securely, or maybe she had accidentally touched it in her sleep. But deep down, she knew this was no coincidence. What happened last night was real, and the Apsorn doll might be the cause of all these strange events. Methinee felt she had been inescapably drawn into a supernatural story. She had to find the truth behind this doll, no matter what horrors it might bring her. The next morning, Methinee woke up feeling unwell. She felt as if she hadn't slept soundly, as if something had been disturbing her sleep all night since she got the doll. Looking at the Apsorn doll on her bedside table, she noticed it wasn't in the same position she had arranged it. It had turned slightly more to face her, as if it were staring. The doll's beautiful face seemed to come slightly alive in the early morning. Methinee tried to console herself that perhaps she had placed it insecurely, or maybe she had accidentally touched it in her sleep. She rubbed her eyes and got out of bed with a throbbing headache. She walked to the kitchen for a drink of water, passing through the hall filled with old, decrepit furniture. A strange, chilling sensation passed through her, even though the air wasn't particularly cold. She tried not to overthink it and continued walking, but a faint sound from behind made her stop. It was a sound like a faint, unintelligible whisper. She turned to look, but saw nothing unusual, only the dimness that still shrouded parts of the house. In the following days, the strange events became more apparent. Faint footsteps, like a child's, echoed from the hallway at night, even though only Methinee and her father lived in the house. Methinee's father began to complain of insomnia. He would often see looming shadows moving in the corners of the house when he woke up in the middle of the night. He tried to dismiss these thoughts, but a sense of unease still gripped his mind. Methinee began to feel a chilling cold emanating from the Apsorn doll on her bedside table. She felt a strange sensation of being constantly watched, even when she turned off the lights to sleep. These feelings grew more intense, making her feel unsafe in her own home. She wanted to tell her father about these things, but didn't have the courage to worry him with something she wasn't even sure about. She could only keep her suspicions and fears quietly to herself. She would often wake up startled in the middle of the night, feeling an ice-cold breath brush past her face. The accumulated fear made Methinee suspicious of everything in the house. She walked around as if hiding from an unseen gaze. She began to notice that some objects in the house were strangely moved from their original positions, whether it was a picture frame that turned over on its own or a book that fell from the shelf for no reason. Even the Apsorn doll itself seemed to always shift its posture whenever she wasn't looking, as if it were sending some kind of signal she didn't understand. The feeling of being threatened grew more intense until she could barely stand it anymore. The atmosphere in the house became so gloomy that an unseen energy could be felt. A foul smell, like a rotting corpse, wafted intermittently, making her feel nauseous and terrified. It was not a normal smell that should be in this old house by the river at all. Methinee tried to find an explanation for these events, but could find no reason to support what was happening. The mystery shrouding the house began to form an inescapable darkness. Methinee now knew this was not just a coincidence, but a supernatural phenomenon that was actually happening. That night, Methinee faced an event many times more terrifying than before. She was jolted awake in the middle of the night by a loud crash from downstairs, an unusually jarring sound in the quiet house. Her heart pounded with fear and confusion. She grabbed the flashlight by her bed, turned it on, and cautiously tiptoed out of her bedroom to investigate below. The flashlight's beam cut through the darkness, revealing the looming shadows of the old furniture, which looked more intimidating than ever. A faint, coppery smell of blood hit her nostrils, making her feel nauseous. She held her breath and stepped forward slowly. The entire house was so silent she could hear her own heart thumping as if it would burst from her chest. She searched around until she reached the main hall. There, she found that the glazed ceramic vase on the oak table, an antique her mother had cherished, had fallen and shattered on the floor. She was certain no one else was in the house but her and her father. So who could have made the vase fall and break? Or was it just a strong gust of wind? She tried to find a reason to explain it, but it was incredibly difficult. The feeling of dread began to gnaw at her mind more and more with each passing moment. She decided not to tell her father about it, not wanting to worry him any further. The next day, she would try to consult someone who might have some knowledge on the matter. After the vase-shattering incident, Methinee began to suffer from serious insomnia. She was wary of every sound, every shadow that appeared in the house. She tried to clean up the shattered pieces of the vase from the floor with trembling hands. She felt a chilling cold seeping from the walls of the house, as if unseen eyes were constantly staring at her. Her father noticed the strangeness happening to his daughter. He tried to ask what was wrong, but Methinee kept everything hidden, not wanting him to worry along with her. Her father could only sigh heavily with concern and watch over his daughter closely. Their relationship seemed to be filled with a distance caused by the hidden secret. Methinee started searching for information about the supernatural and ancient legends related to dolls in her mother's private library. She hoped to find a clue that could solve the mystery of the Apsorn Doll. And that very night, Methinee heard heavy footsteps coming from the upstairs hallway, as if someone was pacing back and forth in the darkness. She rushed to peek, but found no one there. The next morning, Methinee found small, muddy footprints on the old wooden floor in front of her room. even though it should have been impossible for anyone to enter the house. She was certain those footprints hadn't been there the night before. Her heart pounded with fear and confusion. She tried to think of a reason, but none could explain it. The small footprints resembled those of a little girl who had walked to her door and then mysteriously vanished. Methinee felt she was now truly facing something supernatural. The Apsorn doll on the table continued to stare at her with its lifelike emerald green gem eyes. She felt the doll was mocking her fear. This discovery of the vanished footprints made Methinee even more certain that she had to find the truth behind the Apsorn doll as soon as possible. She could no longer let this evil energy threaten her family. She had to find a way to stop it, no matter the cost. A strong determination began to form in Methinee's mind. Methinee began her search for the truth by trying to find information about the Apsorn doll. She went to the house's old library, where her mother used to spend most of her time reading. The library was filled with ancient, dilapidated books. The smell of old paper and dust permeated the area. Dim light shone through a small window, revealing dust motes dancing in the air. She started searching for books related to the supernatural, ancient legends, or the history of dolls. While searching, she accidentally found a diary hidden under a pile of old books. It was a very old, dark brown leather-bound diary. Its cover was scratched and worn from long use. Methinee carefully opened the diary. The first page was written in a hurried handwriting she knew well. It was her mother's. Her heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and fear. The diary's contents were filled with strange stories about terrifying dreams, whispers heard at night, and the constant feeling of being watched. It also mentioned the Apsorn doll several times, as if her mother had experienced the same strange events she was now facing. She knew instantly that what was happening was not just her imagination, but something real that had happened to someone in this house before. She read the diary with a determination to find a way to save her family from this terrible situation. The diary contained not only stories of fear, but also line drawings that seemed to be recordings of her mother's dreams. Methinee found a drawing of an ancient female dancer in a radiant golden tie dress with a sorrowful face. The eyes of the dancer in the drawing were emerald green, just like the eyes of the Apsorn doll. A chill ran through Methinee's body as she realized this horrifying connection. The diary also mentioned her mother's attempts to find the truth about the Apsorn doll, noting various places she had traveled to for research, as well as certain people she had consulted about this mystical matter. Methinee's mother had left a trail for her to follow. It was a message written in faded ink that said, "Find Ajarn Wattana, who will help you understand everything." Methinee immediately committed the name to memory, as she knew well that Ajarn Wattana was her mother's close friend, an expert in antiquities and occultism. She felt as if her mother was guiding her from another world. This discovery of the diary gave Methinee hope of solving the entire mystery. Methinee decided to go see Ajarn Wattana immediately. She traveled to an old bookstore in the heart of the city, which Ajarn Wattana owned. The bookstore was filled with countless ancient, dilapidated books. The smell of old paper and dust filled the area. Dim light shining in from a large window made the atmosphere feel even more mystical and mysterious. Ajarn Wattana was an elderly woman who appeared calm and quiet, but her eyes were full of brilliant wisdom. When Methinee told her everything that had happened and handed her mother's diary to Ajarn Wattana, the teacher's expression immediately turned tense and serious. Ajarn Wattana fell silent for a moment before letting out a deep sigh and looking at Methinee with eyes full of compassion. She said that this was no ordinary matter, and it was far more terrifying than she could imagine. Ajarn Wattana promised she would help Methinee find the truth and find a way to stop the evil energy that was threatening her family. Methinee felt relieved to have found someone who understood what she was facing and could truly help her. Her mother's diary revealed a story more shocking than Methinee had anticipated. Her mother had recorded the family's connection to the Apsorn Doll, an heirloom passed down for generations. Every time a woman in the family came to possess the doll, strange and unfortunate events would always follow. Methenee's mother wrote that the Apsorn doll was not just a toy, but an object bound to the spirit of an ancient dancer, sacrificed out of jealousy centuries ago. That spirit was trapped inside the doll, awaiting an opportunity to free itself and take revenge on those who had wronged it. All the actions and strange noises in the house came from the spirit in the doll, trying to communicate or display its power. Her mother had tried to find a way to release this malevolent spirit, but had failed before she passed away. Methinee read the diary with a mix of terror and determination. She now understood why her mother had forbidden her from touching the doll, and had always kept it hidden from sight. The diary mentioned an ancient ritual that might help release the spirit, but it was a dangerous ritual with a high risk of bringing ruin. She decided she must continue the mission her mother couldn't complete. She had to find a way to free the ancient dancer's spirit from the Apsorn Doll, no matter the cost. Ajarn Wattana further explained the dark history of the Apsorn Doll. She recounted that the spirit of the dancer residing in the doll was named Buppha, whose soul was trapped centuries ago by an evil black magic ritual. Her sacrifice was the result of jealousy and ambition from a powerful figure in the past who wanted to control her spirit for nefarious purposes. Thus, Buppha's spirit was filled with vengeance and a desire for revenge against those who had harmed her, including the descendants of the perpetrators. Ajarn Wattana said that the Apsorn Doll had been passed down to the women in Methenee's family for generations, and every time the doll was awakened, it would always bring sorrow and ruin to its possessor. Buppha wants to free herself and take revenge on everyone connected to her suffering. Methinee's mother tried to find a way to release this spirit, but due to the complexity and danger of the ritual, she did not succeed. Ajarn Wattana emphasized that releasing this malevolent spirit is not easy. It requires immense courage and could even cost one's life. Ajarn Wattana began to teach the ancient ritual that Methinee's mother had recorded in the diary. It was a ritual that required immense concentration and mental fortitude. Methinee learned the steps with determination, though deep down she was terrified. But her resolve to protect her family and release Buppha's spirit to a peaceful rest was greater than all her fear. Ajarn Wattana warned her that a spirit trapped for so long often harbors intense resentment and would try everything to prevent the ritual from succeeding. She had to be prepared to face the most terrifying things that could happen at any moment. Methinee returned home with new knowledge and steadfast determination. She began preparing for the impending ritual. She felt the heavy weight on her shoulders, but was filled with a resolve to bring the whole ordeal to a proper end. She knew she was no longer fighting alone, as Ajarn Wattana was always by her side to offer guidance. And even if she had to face death, she was ready to do anything to protect her family. After Methinee discovered the horrifying truth from her mother's diary, the evil energy residing in the Apsorn Doll seemed to intensify, as if it sensed her awakening. The atmosphere inside the house grew heavy and filled with an unnatural chill, as if a misty veil of death constantly shrouded it. Suddenly, a thunderstorm raged furiously, with the roar of thunder echoing throughout the house and across the Chao Phraya River. A howling wind blew through the window gaps, making the curtains flutter as if waved by an invisible hand. Objects inside the house began to move on their own, as if pushed by a mysterious force. Apparitions of a long-haired woman's shadow appeared in various corners of the house and vanished in an instant. The coppery smell of blood mixed with the foul scent of wildflowers assaulted her nostrils so strong it almost made Methinee vomit. Methinee's father began to notice the strange occurrences in the house. His face turned pale, his eyes filled with terror. He tried to ask Methinee what was happening, but she didn't want to tell him the whole truth yet, fearing he would be shocked and disbelieve what she was facing. Methinee felt the ever-strengthening power from the Apsorn Doll. It was trying to overwhelm her mind and plunge the house into an abyss of darkness forever. As the energy of Buppha's spirit intensified, the strange events in the house occurred with horrifying frequency. Methinee would often hear the faint sound of traditional Thai music wafting from somewhere in the dead of night. The sound was beautiful, yet strangely laced with sorrow and terror. Sometimes a chilling laughter would echo from a dark corner, sending shivers down her entire body. Objects in the house would levitate into the air and then fall, shattering for no reason. Doors and windows slammed open and shut violently as if a storm were passing through the house. The shadow of the dancer appeared more and more clearly, to the point where she would sometimes see it standing and staring at her from a corner of the room, before vanishing in an instant. Methinee's father fell gravely ill for no apparent reason. He had a high fever and was delirious, raving about strange things that weren't real. Methinee knew well this was the work of the evil spirit trying to destroy her family. She had to perform the ritual as soon as possible to stop this malevolent energy before it was too late. She felt the immense pressure she shouldered all alone. One of the most terrifying incidents was the night the Apsorn Doll levitated in mid-air above Methinee's bed. Its emerald green jewel eyes glowed in the darkness as if truly alive. A whispering sound, like laughter, echoed in her ear, startling Methinee awake in terror. She tried to scream, but no sound could escape her throat, as if it were blocked by something. The temperature in the room dropped rapidly until it was as bone-chillingly cold as the North Pole. A large, dark shadow appeared behind the Apsorn Doll. It was the shadow of a woman with a distorted figure and abnormally long limbs. The strange shadow tried to reach out and choke her. Methinee gathered all her strength and screamed at the top of her lungs until the bizarre shadow vanished in an instant. She felt weak and utterly terrified. The intensifying attack from Buppha's spirit made her realize that the spirit was now fully awake and ready to destroy everything in its path. She could wait no longer. She had to perform the ancient ritual as soon as possible to protect her father's life and her own. Methinee decided she couldn't handle the evil energy alone. She took her mother's diary to Ajarn Wattana, her mother's close friend and an expert in occultism and antiquities. Ajarn Wattana was a 70-year-old woman, slender in build but with piercingly sharp eyes. Her snow-white hair was tied neatly in a bun. Ajarn Wattana spent time reading the diary with a grim expression. After finishing, she took a deep breath and said that the Apsorn Doll was not just an ordinary doll, but a cursed object, inhabited by a malevolent spirit that truly wanted to be freed. Ajarn Wattana explained that Methenee's mother's sudden death might have been the work of the spirit in the doll, which needed energy and wanted to wipe out the family. Ajarn Wattana advised that the only way to stop and release the malevolent spirit was to perform an ancient ritual passed down in her mother's family, a ceremony that required great courage and determination. Ajarn Wattana emphasized that this ritual was dangerous and could be fatal, but Methinee insisted on doing it to protect her family and for her mother. Her father, having heard the whole story, began to believe and supported his daughter's decision. He accepted what was happening and was ready to face this horrifying truth together with his daughter. Ajarn Wattana arrived at the old house by the Chao Phraya River with numerous ancient ritual implements, rare items imbued with mysterious energy. The ritual set included talismans, red cloth, yantra cloths, aromatic incense, and various ancient herbs. The pungent aroma of the incense and herbs helped drive away the foul, musty smell that had enveloped the house. Methenee's father, though not fully recovered from his illness, tried to get up to help prepare the site for the ritual. His face was tense, but filled with a determination to fight. Methinee helped Ajarn Wattana clean the secret underground room, a room that had been used for similar rituals in the past. The room looked eerie and was full of dust and cobwebs, yet it held a certain sacred feeling. The preparations took almost the entire day. Methinee felt a strange energy within the underground room, as if a chilling wind blew through constantly, even though there were no vents. Dozens of candles were lit and arranged around the altar that Ajarn Wattana had set up to dispel the darkness and create a sacred atmosphere. Everyone felt the tension mounting as the night of confrontation drew near. Before starting the ritual, Ajarn Wattana explained its importance and steps to Methinee and her father in detail. She said that this ritual was not just about exorcising the spirit, but about truly sending Buppha's spirit to a peaceful afterlife. To do so, they had to release the resentment that had built up for hundreds of years and fill the spirit with peace. Ajarn Wattana warned that Buppha's spirit would resist fiercely at first, as it didn't want to be freed from its long imprisonment. Methinee had to maintain her concentration and recite the chants given by the Ajarn flawlessly. Methinee's father held his daughter's hand tightly for support, assuring her he would always be by her side no matter what happened. Methinee felt the love and concern from her father, which gave her the courage to face what was coming. Everyone was ready for the final battle against the evil energy that had long plagued their family. Fear was replaced by determination and the desire to bring peace back to this house. The night of confrontation arrived. The sky was dark and starless, as if nature itself was bearing witness to this sacred and terrifying ritual. Ajarn Wattana prepared the ceremony in the secret underground room, a chamber that had been sealed for decades. The room was full of dust and cobwebs, with a strong, musty smell mixed with a faint, blood-like odor lingering from a previous event. Dozens of candles were lit and arranged on an altar, casting dim, flickering light that created eerie, moving shadows on the walls. Methinee and her father sat before the altar, hands clasped tightly in excitement and fear. The Apsorn Doll was placed in the center of the altar, its emerald green jewel eyes staring at them coldly. Ajarn Wattana began to chant an ancient spell in a solemn and firm voice. The chanting echoed throughout the underground room, as if awakening something from its slumber. Suddenly, vibrations started to shake the entire room. Objects on the shelves trembled and fell with a loud crash. A high-pitched scream echoed through the area, as if the trapped spirit was expressing its outrage and resisting the ritual with all its might. A strong wind gusted from nowhere, extinguishing the candles one by one, multiplying the darkness and fear. Methinee felt a chilling cold envelop her body, as if embraced by death. She knew well that this battle was a wager with all of their lives, and there was no going back, whatever the outcome might be. Ajarn Wattana's chanting grew louder and louder as the candle light dimmed, as if its energy was being absorbed. Suddenly, the Apsorn Doll in the middle of the altar began to shake violently. Its emerald green jewel eyes glowed a crimson red, like the fires of hell. A large, dark shadow emerged from the doll and lunged swiftly at Methinee and her father. It was the distorted and terrifying shadow of the dancer Buppha, her face filled with rage and pain. She tried to attack Methinee, but was violently repelled by the power of Ajarn Wattana's spell. The spirit's screams echoed throughout the underground room, deafeningly loud. Methinee felt a chilling wind rush past her face again and again, as if something was trying to touch her. The battle raged on, fierce and terrifying. Everyone had to use all their strength to fight this evil spirit. The underground room was filled with unseen energies clashing violently. Methinee felt an immense pressure crashing down on her, so much so that she could barely breathe. Methinee gathered all her remaining concentration and chanted the prayer Ajarn Wattana had taught her, slowly but clearly. Each word she uttered seemed to carry a certain power. A soft white light began to shine from her hands and shot towards the Apsorn Doll. The raging spirit of Buppha seemed to falter for a moment upon contact with the light. Its body began to tremble violently and slowly disintegrate, as its shriek changed from rage to one of profound sorrow. Methinee could feel the pain and torment of Buppha's spirit imprisoned for hundreds of years. She tried to send her energy of compassion and understanding to the spirit, to release the resentment that consumed Buppha's heart and free her from the bonds of the past. Methinee's father held his daughter's hand tightly, giving her strength and facing this horrifying truth together. Ajarn Wattana continued chanting until Buppha's spirit completely faded from the underground room. Silence returned to the room once more, leaving only the dimly flickering candlelight and the lingering scent of incense. The tension that had once filled the air vanished instantly. The ritual proceeded for a long time, amidst the tension and fear that enveloped the underground room. Ajarn Wattana used all her power to chant and control the evil spirit in the Apsorn Doll. Methinee and her father helped by sending their mental energy and chanting as instructed. The dancer's spirit's screams echoed horrifically, as if in excruciating agony. The objects floating in mid-air began to fall violently and shatter, their crashes thundering through the room. The darkness slowly began to recede as light gradually appeared. The Apsorn Doll on the altar started to emit a bright, soft white light, as if containing immense energy. The faint form of the dancer's spirit slowly disintegrated into the air with a soft whispering sound that faded into the silence like an eternal farewell. When the light faded, the Apsorn Doll returned to being just an ordinary wooden doll. But this time, its emerald green jewel eyes no longer held a frightening look. Instead, they were filled with peace and a gentle smile. Ajarn Wattana collapsed from exhaustion, but her face was filled with relief and a smile of success. The ritual was successful. The evil spirit had been released, and peace had returned to this house once more. After the ritual ended, Methinee and her father took the Apsorn Doll to be released into the Chao Phraya River. It was a time when the morning sun began to shine upon the calm water's surface. This act was not just to remove the doll from the house, but to truly send the dancer's spirit to a peaceful afterlife. Methinee watched the doll slowly float away until it was out of sight. She felt a sense of relief and a light entering her life. The grief from losing her mother remained, but the fear and anxiety that had once enveloped the house were completely gone. Methinee's father embraced his daughter with love and care. They had both survived this terrifying event together and learned of a family bond stronger than anything else. The old wooden house by the Chao Phraya River was peaceful once again. Although there were traces of damage from the incident, they were marks that signified the fight for true freedom. Methinee decided to keep this story as a priceless lesson she would never forget. As the Apsorn Doll floated far out of sight, Methinee felt as if a heavy burden she had been carrying was completely lifted. The warm morning sun shone on her face, making her feel the return of hope and life energy. Her father gently patted her head in comfort, making Methinee feel the love and security he provided. On the way back home, they saw the traces of damage from the confrontation with the evil spirit, be it cracks on the walls or scattered belongings. But those marks no longer made them feel afraid. Instead, they served as a reminder of the victory they had won. Methinee decided not to leave this house, for she knew it was a place full of family memories and where she had learned the meaning of fighting for what is right. Their lives would start anew in this house with a deeper peace and understanding than ever before. They were ready to move forward in life, strong and fearless.